最近買ったシャツを着ていくねと英語で言いたいときに何と言ったらいいんでしょう。さあそれ簡単でしょ。着るイコール wear だから I will wear。 ちょっと待ってください。着るを辞書で調べるときは wear がよく出てくると思うんですが、 wear を使うとちょっと危ないときがあります。
なっちゃん let's go.
Oh, 1 second. I need to wear my coat.
Huh?
皆さんこんにちは、アーサーです。今回の動画では1、実は着るは wear じゃない理由。2、ネイティブが実際に使う言い方とその使い分け。3、この英語を上手に使い分けるためのドリル。で、一緒に学びましょう。よろしくお願いします。So it's kind of strange, don't you think? When I was first learning Japanese, I learned that the English word wear means kiru. And so I started to use wear and kiru for the same situation. But I came across some problems with that. You know, actually, depending on the situation, kiru doesn't just mean wear. Depending on the situation, there are different ways to say it in English. And this is a very, very important point. Lots of people, when they study English, they want to take Japanese words and find English translations for words. But this causes a lot of confusions. なぜかっていうと、英語の本来の目的は日本語を英語に変換するのではなく、頭の中のイメージ、気持ち、情報、いわばメッセージを相手に伝えることです。We want to share the images. We don't want to just share the words. We want to share the images, the messages.And so in order to communicate in English naturally, we don't want to just focus on the words. We want to focus on the image of what we're actually saying. You know, actually in English, there are two types of verbs. We have verbs of change and verbs of condition. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, verbs of change are when you have a verb that does something and changes a situation. You take an action and something changes. Now, this is most verbs.Like eat, sleep, walk. Whenever you do a verb like that, you're changing the situation so that you're doing a new action, right? Now, what about verbs of condition? Now, verbs of condition are verbs you use to show a specific situation. You're not necessarily doing anything, but you are in that condition.And actually, the Japanese verb kiru covers these two situations. You know, when you say シャツを着る, there's two images. The first one is when you kiru the シャツ, you put it on your body, you 身にまとう the shirt. And then after that is the 身にまとっている状態, right? You already have the shirt on your body. But in each situation, you use the word kiru.But in English, each situation has its own verb. There are two different verbs. Now, what are those words? Well, the verb of condition, when you're already in that 着ている状態, 身にまとっている状態, we use the word wear. Like, I'm wearing a shirt. I'm gonna wear a shirt today. The image is of you wearing that shirt. You're not necessarily, 身にまとう瞬間じゃなくて, you're already wearing that shirt. It's your condition.Now, what about the verb of change? そのシャツを身にまとう瞬間は何と言ったらいい? In that situation, you say put on. So in the image I shared before, in the first situation, the verb of change, you put on the shirt and then you are wearing the shirt. And this is where the confusion lies. A lot of Japanese people, when they should say put on, they say the word wear because in their mind, kiru equals wear.All
right, Natcha, I'm waiting for you outside.
Oh, 1 second. I'm wearing my coat.
Wait, then why do I need to wait?
だってまだ着てないんだもん。
でも着てるって言ったじゃん。
でも他に getting dressed というフレーズ聞いたことあるんだけど、それはどういう意味? The phrase get dressed, I'm getting dressed, is very similar, but in that case, it doesn't mean just putting on one piece of clothing. It means putting on your whole outfit from the beginning down to your...Sorry guys, I can't show that on YouTube, but I think you get the idea. If it's just one piece of clothing, 着る瞬間は put on. 着ている状態だと wear. And if you're putting on a whole outfit, it's getting dressed. Wait. Don't change to a new video. 答えを知ったからといって使えるとは限らないから This is the most important part of the video. Please just watch for another few seconds. Or at least until the end.So then, how do you go about using put on and using wear correctly? Well, to be honest, in a lot of situations, if you just look at a Japanese 例文, It can be either or. The most important thing is the image that's in your mind. Remember, English isn't about getting a correct answer on a test. It's about conveying what's in your mind. And so the correct word to use depends on what's in your mind. If you have the image of you putting on the piece of clothing, that instance, that shunkan, then it's put on. But if you're already wearing it, you're kind of after that situation, you use the word wear. That's the basic rule. Also, if you're explaining a list of actions you took for someone, maybe telling about what you did for that day, you tend to use the word put on because you use a lot of change verbs. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And so put on makes sense in that situation. You don't have a change verb, condition verb. It doesn't really work very well. So in the case of シャツを着て外に出るね, in that case, you're giving an order of first, シャツを着る, 外に出る. So in that case, you would say, I'm gonna put on a shirt and go outside. You can also say, I'm going to wear a shirt and go outside. But the image of that is you are in your house and you don't do anything and then suddenly, I'm wearing a shirt. Now go outside. There's no image of putting it on, so it's a little bit strange. Okay, so now let's see how well you understand the tsukaiwake of these two phrases. So for this, I'm going to give you a Japanese sentence and I want you to translate it into English for me. Are you ready to start? Let's look at the first sentence. The first sentence is going to be 上着を着てから外に行くね. How would you translate this into English? I'll give you 5 seconds. Oh, I don't have a watch. Okay, I'll just tell you the situation. So the image here, right, is the junban, right? First you're gonna 上着を着る, and then you're going to 外に行く, right? So in that case, it would be put on. I'm going to put on a coat and go outside. Now let's look at example number 2. 彼は新しいシャツを着て友達と出かけている. How would you say this in English? Oh, sorry, it's time now. Yeah, so in this situation, 新しいシャツを着てから外に出かけたんじゃなくて、そのシャツを着ながら、その着ている状態で友達とお出かけしているのがイメージなんで、He is out with friends wearing a new shirt になります。Now for the final example, what about this situation? 新しいシャツを着て出かけました。What would you say in English in this situation? The answer is, it depends on your image. So in your image, when you see that sentence, if you imagine yourself putting on the shirt and then going out, you would say, I put on a new shirt and went out. But if you're not having that image, you just have an image of yourself wearing that new shirt and you're outside already, you would say, I wore a new shirt out. Now, can you see how just focusing on the words can be pretty confusing? It's really important to forget about the words themselves and focus on that image. Now, finally, let's do a drill to develop a sense so that you can use it in a real situation. Remember, the purpose of English isn't to just answer questions on a quiz. It's to really use it in the real world for communication. And I want to help you develop that sense so that you can use this English in real situations. So here's the drill. We're going to take this one sentence template and we're going to put in a specific word and then we're going to change it after repeating it 3 times. Now the template sentence is, I put on my blank and wore it, or that, outside. So in this blank, we're going to put an item of clothing. Now, if it's pants or shoes, it's plural, so you're going to say wore them. But if it's not plural, you'll say wore it. And so what we're going to do together is we're going to use these words. Gloves, coat, shoes, hat. So the first sentence is going to be, I put on my gloves and wore them outside. Let's say that 3 times. I put on my gloves and wore them outside. I put on my gloves and wore them outside. I put on my gloves and wore them outside. Now let's do the next word, coat. I put on my coat and wore it outside. I put on my coat and wore it outside. I put on my coat and wore it outside. Okay, now let's do the next word, shoes. I put on my shoes and wore them outside. I put on my shoes and wore them outside. I put on my shoes and wore them outside. And now let's do the final word, hat. I put on my hat and wore it outside. I put on my hat and wore it outside. I put on my hat and wore it outside. Of course, using this construction, you can use many pieces of clothing. So please practice this on your own, putting in your own pieces of clothing. Now, there's another drill that you can do in your everyday life to develop this sense. Next time when you're putting on a piece of clothing, you're putting on your socks, you're putting on your pants, you're putting on your shirt, this moment you're putting it on, you say to yourself, I'm putting on my pants, I'm putting on my shirt, I'm putting on my gloves, I'm putting on my hat. The moment you put it on, in English you say, I'm putting on that action. And then after you've put it on, wait a second and say, I'm wearing my clothing items. So for example, I'm putting on my jacket. I'm wearing my jacket. I'm putting on my gloves. I'm wearing my gloves. I don't have gloves right now though. By doing drills like this, you start to connect your actions, your sense with English, and you can use it a bit more naturally. But the best thing to do is to actually use English in the real world with foreigners. 僕が日本語を勉強して最初の4年間はテキストを17冊買ってマンツーマンレッスンを週1回通ってたんですけど、実際に日本に行ってみたら全く喋れなかった、言葉が出てこなかった、頭が真っ白になりました。でもその経験がきっかけで日本語が実際に話せるようになる方法が分かりました。And in a very short amount of time, I was able to speak Japanese the way that I speak now, and hundreds of my students are using the same method to connect with foreigners and actually speak English. その学習法に興味がある方のために無料ガイドにまとめてみました。もしあなたは今の英語学習で満足している場合は問題ないです。You can watch a new video by clicking up here. でももしあなたは英語を学ぶだけではなく生の世界で外国人の実際に話せるようになりたいのであれば You can get the 無料ガイド by clicking up here or by clicking the link in the description box below. Anyways, thanks so much for joining and I hope you enjoyed it. これからも一緒に世界とつながりましょう. See you next time. Bye.